I'm Barry Short, and this is The View from Israel. Now, with everything that's going on here in the Middle East, I could have offered you a video explaining how Israel's found itself to force to go to war against Iran over their military pursuit of a nuclear weapon. But that's material for another show. This video is different, and I've chosen to look at Iran from a completely different perspective. Now, if the world was honest with itself, it would acknowledge that Israel is an enemy that believes the world must explode in order to herald the return of the Mahdi, their mystical figure. And today's Iran promotes an agenda to religiously conquer the world, a conquest that begins by obliterating me, another 10 million Israelis, before they turn their attention on America, leaving the rest of the weak West to meekly surrender. In this show, I want to expose the ugly face of Iran. And if you think it's strange that I pivot this attention via Sweden, sit tight and be prepared to be better informed. I have a special guest. His name is Nima Rostami. Nima, welcome to The View from Israel.
Thank you very much, Mr.
So Nima, tell me about yourself. You're Swedish, but with Iranian roots, correct?
That's right. I'm 54 years old, sorry, and I was born in Iran, and I immigrated to Sweden when I was young. And I've been living in Sweden all the time without traveling back to my home country or country of origin. And I didn't that because I disagree with the current Iranian government, and I think that I think that if I do so, I will become an instrument in the hands of the mullahs for propaganda, and that's what why I didn't go back and I stay in Sweden. I'm a lawyer today and work as a lawyer, and I have my own law firm and work with family law and criminal law. I'm a Swedish citizen, yes, of course.
So Nima, tell me, do you know roughly how many Iranian exiles, if you want to call them that, or former Iranians there are in Sweden these days?
In Sweden, approximately with the second or one and second generation and their children and so on, it's roughly 150,000 people.
150,000?
150, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, so now, look, you're a lawyer, and you participated in a very significant trial that took place in Stockholm in 2019. I'm referring to the trial of Hamid Nori, correct?
That's right. I was, yeah.
So tell our viewers about Hamid Nori, who he was, why he was arrested when he flew to Sweden from Iran, and who were the people that brought the case against Nori to the Swedish courts?
Yeah, of course. I was involved in the case in the beginning, a couple of weeks, but then I didn't continue, and the court appointed other lawyers for the victims. So, but I'm very well in understanding about the case, and it was Hamid Nori was actually in the beginning of the revolution, Iran-Iraq war, a member of the Revolutionary Guard, and he was kind of persecutor at two of Iranian very famous jails, and he was very much involved according to this trial, and the information that the Iranian diaspora had about him. So he was very much involved in torturing and executing the political prisoners and doing that a kind of practical things to handle political activities that were jailed during a period of 1980s. So his trial, there was a couple of victims who were jailed by that time and prison that Hamid Nouri was working at. So they were member of political parties, especially a political main by that time a main political organization is called the People's Mujahideen, and the three of them were very active to bringing the case to the court, but there were a lot of other victims who were lefties, the Marxists, and the family members of the victims who executed at the prison. So it was Swedish citizens, actually by Iranian origin, who brought the case in front of the court.
Yes, I'd like to inform our viewers, Nima, that in fact there was what was called a 1988 Death Commission, and this was headed by the previous Ayatollah Raisi,
Yes.
in which, and I want to tell our listeners to know that thousands, literally thousands of Iranians have been snatched off the streets or from their homes, arrested, imprisoned, tortured. And the case in particular, Hamid Nouri, or the hundreds of Iranians who had family members who disappeared into the infamous Iranian prisons, never to be found again. And
That's
there's
right.
sufficient evidence, correct me if I'm wrong, Nima, that most of them were hanged under the orders of Raisi, ably assisted by Hamid Nouri. At the time of the trial, Nima, I refer to Hamid Nouri as the Eichmann to Raisi's Hitler. And you've been at the trial, so you could give some detail of some of the harrowing evidence given by the relatives of people. And also tell me about the sentence that Hamid Nouri received at the end of the trial from the Swedish judges.
That's right. During just a couple of months, the time when Iran-Iraq war ended, 1988. So actually, as you mentioned, the death committee, by order of the founder of the religion, Ayatollah Khomeini, had a trial, so-called trial, within 1 or 2 minutes of people of the prisoners that who have been indicted and just waiting for the prison time. Some of them even had already the indictment was over. I mean, the time that should be prison, that time was over, and they were waiting for to be freed. But they had a trial again, so-called trial, within some or 2 minutes, and they asked a couple of questions that if you are still against the regime, do you believe on God or not, or are you a communist or not? These kind of questions, and without the prisoners knowing what the aim of the question was, they didn't even understand that it is some kind of trial. They thought that it's just a routine, normal routine checks and questions they were asking, but actually the question was some kind of trial. according this committee. Of course, Raisi was the head of the committee, and the name of this committee was actually the name that prisoners, the political activists, they gave the name of the committee afterwards, because by that time they didn't understand what's going on. But afterwards they figured out that it was a four-person that they were appointed by Khomeini to execute the political prisoners. So Raisi, of course, gave order, and the people like Nori executed the order. Of course, he had the evidence that we saw in the trial process. It was family members of the victims who have been executed, and prisoners by themselves, that they could point it out, Nuri, what he had done, who he was, what his role was in the committee and in the trial process and executing people. So it was very strong evidence. It was so strong that the Swedish court could sentence Hamid Nouri to lifetime sentence. So it was very touching, very exciting trial. The day of trial, they made. I think it was around 90 days. The district court of Stockholm had a trial process. 90 days within 3 months, and it was just people who were involved in the crime that Nouri had committed, so they could actually tell his stories. I remember one of the witnesses who was by that time a member of a kind of Marxist party. His uh, speech or oral speech, it was actually the whole day he could tell for the court what happened during a short period of time, how Nouri and others tortured them, what the aim of torture was, and how they executed it. It was just astonishing, and it was I can tell that it was the first time during the Iranian history that some kind of trial was held, and it was very exciting and very um, much oral statements about the crime that guy had committed.
So what was the sentence imposed on Hamid Nouri by the judges in Stockholm?
It was lifetime sentence.
Lifetime sentence. But
yes.
But that was in 2019, correct? 2019,
it was
2020.
2020. It was 22. He was arrested at the end of 2019, but the trial process took more than 2 years.
Now we come to another part that, again, I think is going to shock our viewers. In June 2024, despite the sentence for the crimes, the awful crimes that you expressed, Hamid Nouri was released from Sweden in exchange for 2 Swedish citizens that had been held illegally by Iran. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, of course. That is it's a very famous strategy that the Iranian government has. So in that moment, the Iranian government take the citizens of that country as take them in custody with and just an allegation that it's not true. It's just false allegations, and take them in trial. We don't know what kind of evidence they have, what kind of trial they have. It's just false accusations like espionage for Israel, something like that. And then they sentence a couple of years, or maybe not sentence. They're just waiting there and they're keeping them at the custody in the prison. And then they try to negotiate with the countries that they are holding the terrorists. And after a couple of years, they do some kind of exchange and they get back their own terrorists.
We're seeing in Israel on our TV screens a lot of responses from Iranians in Iran, in Tehran, who are cheering and applauding and supporting Israel, what we're doing over there. What's the feeling of the from Iranians in Sweden as they see what's going on in Iran, particularly emphasizing our Israeli military exercise or operations that's going on there against the military, against the Iranian intelligence, and also against their nuclear scientists. Are they supporting us or are they against us?
The 45 years of Iranian government, they have invested everything that so-called infrastructure is not an infrastructure for the people, for the country. The infrastructure they have built, they have strengthened their own mechanism they strengthen their own power. And the infrastructure is also about involving other Shia militant groups, for example, Hezbollah, and in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen. That's a part of the Iranian government's infrastructure, if you ask my opinion about it. So the infrastructure is the aim of the target of the Israeli operations is infrastructure of the government. That's how we understand of their operations. In Sweden, for example, we have very strong leftist opinion in Sweden. I mean, I'm thinking about the Iranian diaspora. But the ordinary people who don't accept the Islamists and the lefties, they just pro-Israel, and they want to get help from Israel to get rid of that brutal regime. And believe me, nobody is happier than Iranian people when they see the Israeli IDF and Mossad eliminating the brutal IRG members and leaders. And we, of course, I personally hope, very grateful for that. And I hope that the IDF will fulfill the operation by cutting the head of the snake, that it will be a very amazing feeling for the Iranian people. And of course, it can also lead to another consequences. And the consequences, well, I mean that it can lead to some kind of demonstrations, and that people can get more energy and be braver to uprise and get rid of the regime. But of course, the feelings are totally different. But majority of people thanks Israel for the operations. The only country, the only people that we think that are our friends in these days, it's just Israel and nobody else.
Well, you're leading me on to another question I've got for you, Nima. Yesterday, I heard a well-known American pundit, because obviously it's a full conversation in America. What should President Trump do, what he shouldn't do, or whatever. So I heard yesterday a well-known American pundit talking about Iran and saying he doesn't believe in regime change because he claimed, from an American point of view, you don't know what may follow. This, Nima, is a standard position for many American isolationists, because they went in to get rid of Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and they made a mess of it. And they did the same in Afghanistan and made a mess of that. But my answer to him, and I don't know if it comes up with you, I want to hear your answer,
Yeah,
is to say to him, do you really prefer to leave in place an enemy that believes in blowing up my country under a nuclear explosion and yours under, again, another nuclear mushroom cloud, and a regime that persecutes, tortures, and hangs its own people because you think that the alternative will be worse? Give
yeah,
me a
of course.
break. How
I
much
mean,
worse can that can you get? So,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know what your opinion is, whether you agree with me or with the American.
Yeah, of course, I agree with you. And it's not wrong to get help from outside, from Israel or from other countries. The Western lefties and social liberals, they don't want to have a change in Iran because if it happens, it will have a huge impact, not only in the Middle East, a relation with Israel and other Middle Eastern countries, even in Europe. I mean, you can understand in Sweden. Swedish security police appointed 3 countries as a risk. It's just Russia, China, and Iran. And if you help the Iranian people to get rid of that regime, it's also in your best interest that you get rid of the very huge security risk that you have in your own country. And it's just unbelievable that the liberals and the lefties can just let it go and don't take care of not even of their own country, and it's very unfortunate.
Also, I have to admit here, for me, speaking as Israeli as a Jew, this thing about the refusal to consider and thinking about and supporting perhaps even the exiled Iranians in going for a sort of a regime change. Not that we expect to see Israeli tanks going up the main road in Tehran or American troops on the ground there, not at all. It's up to the Iranian people. But for me, as I said, as a Jew and an Israeli, it's akin about regime change or refusing regime change under any circumstances is akin to the Allies in World War II breaking into Nazi Germany and saying, let's stop here because we
Yes.
don't want to be seen imposing regime change in Germany.
That's right.
Could,
That's right.
could you imagine that?
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, how did the Europeans get rid of the Nazism in Second World War? By getting help from US and other countries get together, then they could unite and can get rid of the Nazism. And if we have that kind of image that no, we don't bomb Nazis and Germany because the civilian can also get damaged, of course. But what's the best option? Best option you have? Let the Nazis rule in Germany and take over other countries and kill you, or you can just kill a couple of people and to get rid of the Nazism. Of course, that's my understanding is that the Iranian regimes have been tolerated and have been supported directly from the Western European countries and even US partially. And that's why the government is still in the power, and people are very frustrated. Nobody can hear their voices, and if they do some kind of revolt and protest, uh, nobody will help them, and the regime will kill them. And the regime will kill them by that ammunitions, by the means that they have received from Germany, from US, from other countries. And that is, of course, very, very sad history and sad part of history. The free world doesn't understand the meaning of having a free and democratic and Iran that has historically has an impact in the Middle East can that can help the people to get rid of the regime and the regime change in order to be able to have a stability in the Middle East.
Yeah, I want to move on to the last point as well, and it's a sensitive one for us here in Israel. And in that, let me put it this way: Sweden is a signatory to the Rome Statute, And according to your Prime Minister, Ulf Christensen, last November, he would have my Prime Minister arrested and transferred to a jail cell near the Hague if he would dare set foot in Sweden. But Sweden is also a member of the IAEA and voted to expose Iran's serious and criminal breach of their nuclear obligations. And as they put it, and your country was a signature, we're racing to a nuclear weapon. And yet, no IAEA member, including Sweden, ever thought to have Iran brought to the United Nations Security Council for global sanctions and maybe perhaps even punishments. So summing it up, Iran can blow up the world and get away with it, but we can't go to war against one of their Hamas proxies without being arrested in Sweden. I thought that, let's put it this way, I'm putting it bluntly, but this is from an Israeli perspective. I don't know if you want to defend Sweden or you find the immorality of the two things at the same time.
No, I don't. I don't want to defend Sweden in that matter. I don't believe that it will happen, and I don't believe that any European countries will arrest the Prime Minister of Israel if he travels to any countries. That is just a show, and I don't believe that there are some evidence, substantial evidence for Mr. Netanyahu that committed a war crime. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable how the establishment in Europe and that they think that Netanyahu has committed a war crime. I mean, I don't know what Sweden would do if they were attacked by that manner that Israel have been. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. I don't believe in that order. There is no substantial evidence to get arrested Mr. Netanyahu, and I'm pretty sure that no government in Europe would arrest him if he travels to Europe. So it's not behind my imagination.
Well, Nima, this is a reason for you to get into politics because, as I preached again, last November, your Prime Minister, Ulf Christensen, said he would have Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrested if he set foot in Sweden. And I'm happy to send you the link, or I'm going to put it on my social media pages. Anybody in Sweden want to see it? Fine. But is this the attitude of Sweden?
No, I don't think
that Prime Minister. And although you expose Iran as being a serious and criminal breach of the worst crime possibly in mankind, and that is they were racing to a nuclear weapon, and you didn't bring them to the Security Council, there's an imbalance there from an Israeli perspective.
Of course, I don't think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Christensen has expressed it that way, but what I understand that Sweden is a member of the International Court, and maybe he has said that, of course, we follow the order and things like that. But I cannot imagine that he will do that. I mean, the Swedish government, Swedish judicial system will make that kind of measures. I don't believe that. That the effect of doing that will be very strong on Sweden. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just not understandable. I mean, Sweden had Hamid Nori arrested and indicted in Sweden for lifetime prison, and then just a second, 1-2 seconds after the ruling were final, so they changed it within the hostage that the Iranian government had taken from Swedish citizens, and that government cannot arrest an Israeli prime minister. I mean, it's just unbelievable. As you mentioned, the double standards is just huge. So I don't believe in that. So even if he says that, he may be forced to say these kind of state that kind of statements, but I wouldn't imagine that it will happen. It's real.
I would put it this way: if we're searching for a reason here, and correct me if I'm wrong, from our perspective over here, we look at the Iranian immigrants into Sweden have assimilated and become very, very successful and productive in Swedish society. And yet there has been another migration into Sweden, which has become less loyal and less productive. And it could well be that if you have major politicians, decision makers on the political left, they could be catering for a new brand of immigrants, migrants into the country that perhaps don't have Sweden's best interests at heart.
I don't think that it will happen. I've been working with immigration law as well, and during the past 3 years, Sweden has passed a lot of reforms on immigration laws. Sweden is now very well prepared to handle in the future wave of immigration. So on that reason, I don't think that it will be a huge problem or a problem for Sweden. Now we have a lot of laws and regulation that we reformed recently, so I'm not so worried about it because we have already built up instruments and roles that will handle the situation. But if you mean that if because of some kind of ongoing war in Iran, there will be a wave of immigration. I don't think that. I hope and I understand that the war, ongoing war, will not stand longer. I don't think that it will be some kind of internal war like it happened in Afghanistan or in Iraq and Syria. I don't believe in that scenario because Iranians are very well aware of this problem or this matter. So even if it happens, so it will be temporary. And while the Swedish government and the other, of course, the European countries, I believe, they have also some kind of thought and understanding about the migration issue. So there wouldn't be a problem that we had during 2015, 16, or 18, or something like that. But I'm particularly not aware of this matter. I'm particularly not worried about the matter.
Yeah, I think I can assure you that Israel is doing an amazing job, really punching way above our weight. If you look at the size of Israel and our population of less than 10 million, you look at the size of Iran, what we're doing there to actually degrade the accumulation of power that's been assembled there in Iran, certainly after we've finished off with one of their proxies, Hezbollah, and finishing off Hamas. And now we're heading what we call the head of the octopus, the main axis of evil. Our view is this will be over in a matter of weeks, not months. And then we're hoping, although we don't believe we're going to get involved in it, that in fact that the Iranians should be able to take their country back and assure Iran, the Middle East, a far better, peaceful and more prosperous future.
Of course. I hope, that's also my understanding. I hope really that this operation will lead to regime change. Otherwise, it's not so good. It's not so good for Israel. It's not so good for anybody else, because if the structure of the regime will be remained in how it was during 45 years, so of course Israel can destroy the nuclear facilities, and that is the huge risk for Israel's security. Of course they can get rid of that, but if the operation doesn't lead to elimination of regime change, elimination of Khamenei and the regime change, it wouldn't be so good, not for Israel, not for us, not for anybody, because then if the regime will continue with their own structure they have built, so of course they will again do the same thing. They will build nuclear facilities again. They will continue with expanding their proxies and so on.
Yeah.
So nothing will be changed. And unfortunately, if they remain in the power, their struggle will be much more worse than it was during 45 years. That's my understanding, and that's why that's my message to your followers, your listeners, is that finish the job and finish it quickly. Otherwise, everyone will lose on that.
Yeah. All right, you and I are on the same page on that. We both wish our soldiers and airmen well, because what we achieve, we hope over here, is going to leave not just a better Israel, a better Middle East, but certainly a more prosperous and peaceful and successful Iran as well. Thank you. I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts with me. If anybody listening to this who, again, is from Iranian extraction, who want to contact me, please do. You can get me on most of the social media platforms. Nima, if you have anything new you want to add, please contact me again. I'll be happy to give you the platform.
Of course, thank you very much. And finally, I would like to say that Iranian people, and despite the regime, this regime has a very historical tight
Right.
relationship with the Jewish people, and that's now a very famous Iranian understanding. We
Yeah,
helped 3,000 years ago. We helped the Jewish people to
you
get
did
their own
indeed.
freedom, their own freedom. They
Yeah,
build their own temples and go back to Jerusalem and get rid of the slavery and very much other privilege that people can have, especially in that hostile area, that hostile environment. So now, unfortunately, we Iranians are in that same situation when Jewish people 3,000 years ago were, and they are now Iranians in the power of, in the very humiliating situation. The elite of very few people controlling the power, and unfortunately, the whole world, I would say the whole world, they are united in the same agenda as Iranian government has. We have a problem, a huge problem with the opinions in Western Europe, in the US, even in US, in the Middle East, with one thing, and this thing is that anti-Semitic understanding that is very, very deep rooted in the European souls, in Middle East, and in the Iranian ruling elite. So that it's the time for Israel. Don't care about that. My message is just only don't care about what US or other countries has their own perspective. The perspective is here to secure the Israeli existence, the Israel's existence, and to help the Iranian people to get rid of the regime, and in order to restore the peace and stability. And if we do that, so in my understanding, many of the Iranians' understanding is that that will have a great impact, not only in the Middle East, even in the whole world. That will be changed dramatically, a new order in the whole world. And that will be a good example of foreign interventions in other countries to be able to restore peace and order. And peace and order is not only achievable by dialogue, by talking, by understanding. the peace can be also restored by war, by missiles, and by airplanes, the bombing in the infrastructure of oppressive and very brutal regime. The Iranian regime's ideology is Islamist, and Islam by origin is another, not only is not a religion, it's actually an ideology. Then the great ideology is, and the main base of the ideology is anti-Semitism, and unfortunately is the same with Marxists and the communists and other liberals, and they have united together around this matter, and it's very unfortunate. And I hope and I believe that Israel and the Israeli people has another understanding of the situation and of the fact that is now in the Middle East.
Well, Nima, I want to thank you and actually bless you for what you mentioned here, and viewers. What Nima was referring to goes back 3,000 years, where the Jews had our own kingdom, and we were taken as slaves of the Babylonians, taken from our land, including Jerusalem as a capital 3,000 years ago, into slavery in Babylon, that is today's Iraq. And as it says in the Bible, and we lay by the waters of Babylon as we cried, as we remembered Zion, and we were saved from that slavery by a Persian king, Cyrus, who took on and defeated the Babylonians and allowed us back to our homeland of 3,000 years, back to the land of Israel, with Jerusalem as its capital. And I can think of no final way of ending this conversation and this unity between me, an Israeli Jew, and you as an Iranian, Swedish Iranian, that end on that note as well. Thank you very much for joining me. And this is Barry Shaw, The View from Israel, saying thank you for viewing.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaw, and stay safe. I hope that this war will be ended very soon, and I hope for free, secure, and Israel and free Iran. And I believe that we will be free and we will be united again in a kind that never ever before happened.
As they say in the Middle East, inshallah. Thank you. And bye.
Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
אנחנו מכריזים בזאת